Well, I chose a couple of horns when I was a young man that I stuck with religiously because they were really good choices. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. The Martin trumpet, the Olds flugelhorn, the helium piccolo. But to be honest with you, there was a bit of a financial reason too. You know, not making a lot of money, and the horns were doing exactly what I wanted to do, so I wasn't like out shopping for new horns. And then I got into film composing and got a record deal, and I had a little more money. And so occasionally I would go out and flirt with other horns. And one of the collector item flugelhorns that I bought was based on the fact that I'd seen those pictures of Miles, Miles in Sketches of Spain, Miles on Quiet Nights playing a Martin flugelhorn. And they're pretty different looking than a lot of other flugelhorns. And they sound a lot different too. What I was gonna play a little something. Yeah, I'm not sure he played the flugelhorn on this, but it's this era. Yeah. As much as I just adore Martin trumpets, this is still the strangest horn I've ever played. It just has definitely an interesting sound, but I think it has to be in the design, obviously. It's not a very, I don't know, shape of the bell. It's almost more like a cornet sound than a flugelhorn, what we've come to know as a flugelhorn sound. But I actually bought this from a saxophone repairman. I played soprano sax. In fact, I played soprano and tenor for a while. And that's a whole other story. And I was getting my soprano sax, the leaks fixed. And I took it down to a repairman here in Hollywood. And he's looking over the sax, figuring out how much it's going to cost to fix the leaks. And I look up, and high up on the wall is this horn. And I'd never actually seen one outside of a picture. And I said, "Can I take that down and take a look at it?" He said, "Sure." And so I played it a bit, and was a little confused by the way it played. But we negotiated, because I knew I wanted it. As a collector, I wanted this horn. So I think he said, "Well, look, I'll trade you the Selmer soprano." I said, "Well, no, I love my Selmer soprano. I'm not going to do that." I think I went home and I brought a D trumpet down and see if he would trade that for it, and he wouldn't do that. And we haggled. Oh my goodness, I think we haggled for a couple of days, and I finally paid him what he wanted for it because, again, it's a collector's item. I played it for a couple of weeks and took it to Bob Malone. And asked him if what we could do. It's just stuffy in the bottom register. Once you get below the E, that comes out pretty well, but once you get much lower than that, it just starts to close up. And he made some adjustments on it, but we could never really get it to play the way I wanted it to. So it's a collector's purchase for me. It lives most of its life on the wall. So Bob Malone keeps coming up in these chats. Great instrument designer and works for Yamaha, heads up their whole brass trumpet program now, I believe. I got to know him pretty well, and he called me up one day and said, "Yamaha has just released a new flugelhorn. I really think you should try it." And so I went into the shop and he pulled it out, and must have liked it because I bought it. And this is a very nice horn, I gotta say. And I used this horn for a number of years. In fact, my record Blue Sun was recorded on this horn. And it's like all Yamaha instruments, it's very consistent. It blows freely. It has a very consistent sound throughout the whole register. I never got that connection, though. You know, like I was talking about earlier, I think the personality of a horn, a character of it. And as wonderful a horn as this is, and as sort of consistent as it is, it never really connected in that emotional way with me. But I made some really nice recordings on it. Blue Sun, let's see what's... Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Well, Blue Sun was a fun record for me. I'd been this sort of fusion musician, then a new age musician, and I'd then signed to Virgin Records and did this sort of, still marketed as new age, but God knows what I was. And I think the record industry had a hard time, and Virgin certainly did. They didn't really know how to sell that music. And so I'd gotten out of the record business for a while, and then just loved playing jazz so much. I had this quintet, and we played around locally. Played just a lot of different sorts of music. Played some Keith Jarrett. I remember we played some of his material, some stuff that I've written over the years, and we got quite a little following. It used to be sort of the hip place to go. On every other Friday and Saturday, we would do a weekend at Le Café. I remember that. Anyway, Sony Records got invited down and ended up signing me as a jazz artist. And Blue Sun was the first record I made for them under that signing. And so it was a return to sort of that classic quintet sound, but I had electric bass, partially for musical reasons, but partially just because Doug Lund was my favorite bass player at the time, and I wanted him in the band, and he played electric. And I've had a few samples here and there, but basically we tried to stick to a sort of a classic quintet format with just a few modern touches around the edges. So I've gone back to the olds. It had been my champion for so many years, and it still was the one that emotionally I was the most connected to. And then I saw a press release that Dave Monette made flugelhorns. Now, quite a number of years before that, I had gotten to know Dave, and he'd made me several instruments, of which we will discuss in another episode. But I saw he made a flugelhorn, and I was a little jealous, I gotta say. A little jealous. So I called him up, and I said, look, I have just done a recording for Brian Wilson, in which he asked me to play flugelhorn. And I had used this horn because that's what I was playing. And I said, he's just asked me to play in Vegas for a PBS special and wants me to come and play the new record and some of the old, his famous Beach Boys things, and be his flugelhorn player, exclusively flugelhorn, on this concert. And I said, how about you lend me one of your new flugelhorns, and it'll be on this PBS special, and you'll get some press, and I get to try your new horn. And he said, absolutely, absolutely. So Dave called me up and said, look, I've got a recent client who's just taking delivery on a horn. That's the only one we have right now. I don't have any others. He said, but I've just checked with him, and he will lend you the horn. I said, well, that's fantastic. So I got in touch with the gentleman, and we worked out the shipping, and he sent me the horn. And I gotta say, it was love immediately. It's as much as I love that olds, this horn sort of took over for me. And I had a very successful recording with Brian Wilson for his special. And I sent the horn back to the gentleman and called up Dave and said, all right, put my name on the waiting list, I want a horn. And he said, okay, that's done. A couple of weeks later, he called me and said, you know, the gentleman with the horn, he's got a financial problem, crisis actually. He needs to sell it. He said, would you buy it? And I said, absolutely. So he sold me the horn, and here it is. And it's just, I don't know. Dave's horns are always a cut above, but this is really a cut above. This is just a superlative horn. Plus, it just looks so damn cool. You know. Yeah, that's it's just so much fun to play. This horn, I've done actually a fair amount of playing on this horn in the brief time I've had it, especially this last year, which is not a lot of concerts going on. Before COVID hit, about a year and a half ago, I did have the great fortune to play a gig with Stanley Clarke. What else have I done? Oh, I did a virtual concert for the Cannes Film Festival. Shot it here in my studio, and it premiered I think it was the opening of the Cannes Film Festival this last year. And this horn was on that. What else? I did an in-house ABC Disney concert for their in-house broadcasts, and this horn was on that. So I have to say, Dave has won me over with this horn. As much as that Ols had been a staple of my performing life, and flugelhorn life, this horn has taken over. It's just a magnificently engineered, designed instrument that is, I could find my voice in this horn very, very easily, so it's just a joy to play. I don't remember exactly when it was. I had a great experience working with Dave Lehman when I was in the late 70s. He lived in San Francisco, and he put together a quartet with just Liebs, me, bass and drums. Mike Formanak, who's gone on to become one of New York's finest bass players. Mike Barsamoto, who's still here in LA, plays. Really a wild and wonderful quartet. Great learning experience for me. And then I very fortunately reconnected with Dave years later, and he played a few concerts with me as a guest artist. And in those, my chops just weren't as strong in the later part of my life because I was so busy scoring, I didn't have a chance to really stay in shape. And I remember being on stage after playing a long concert with Liebs, and he's just a monster. And my face just being so tired and saying, I've got one more to give here. Somehow I've got to get through this last tune. And just picking up the flugelhorn, and it's a forgiving enough instrument for me that I can regain that confidence that I can really play, which if the chops go for me, I can lose that on the trumpet. But the flugelhorn will just hand me just another few miles that I can get going. I'm not sure I have any. Well, there is one. I wish that damn Martin flugelhorn played better. I really do. It's just an iconic, for those trumpet geeks out in the world, it's nothing looks like it. It's completely unique looking. And, Miles played it, but, Miles didn't play it much after that. So I don't think he liked it very much either. It's just an odd horn, but it just doesn't play as well as one would hope. This is sort of a silly, geeky thing, but every flugelhorn maker has a different opinion as to how big this receiver should be, the size of this hole. Everyone agrees on trumpets, so that when you get a mouthpiece and you put it in there, it fits. But I tell you, every single one of my trumpet flugelhorns has a different size. Consequently, I'm having to get mouthpieces custom made for each particular horn if I want to give that horn a shot at really playing the best it can. So I don't like that. This is actually sort of a big question, which I'm sure we're going to hit at other times. But I went through a big crisis, and I had a couple of times in my trumpet playing career where I felt that really, if I wanted to explore jazz to the ultimate degree, I needed to play saxophone. And then I would go back to Miles and say, no, look, Miles recreated 3 or 4 different gyrations of jazz on a trumpet. But I would have these moments of doubt. And part of it is that fluidity, only Freddie Hubbard could do it. Woody Shaw could do it. But it's hard to get that fluidity that a saxophone player can get on the trumpet. I've, over the years, been able to approximate some of that on a flugelhorn. I've never quite had the chops of Freddie, come close, but on the flugelhorn, there's just an ability to play faster and smoother than for me on the trumpet. And so it allowed me to step into that world of the saxophone and help me bring that into my trumpet playing, which then I actually could apply to playing the trumpet. But it was this horn, the flugelhorn, that allowed me to feel comfortable doing that. And so it was actually the horn itself became a vehicle for exploring a whole different approach to improvisation that I was having trouble confronting. There are times when I think I'm more of a flugelhorn player than I am a trumpet player. It's an integral part of my life and is equally as strong an instrument as the trumpet is for me. I love it.